When you are in the middle of an exciting mating attack, the normal reaction is to check the enemy king as much as possible. Random checking gives you a feeling of control. It gives you a feeling of power, and it is completely wrong. Remember, the purpose of kingside initiative is to checkmate the enemy king or to exchange your attack for some kind of long-lasting advantage. Advantage that will torture your opponent for the rest of the game. To actually checkmate an enemy king, you have to stop it from running to safety, and ill-considered checks often chase it out of the embattled area, thereby allowing it to escape. Before you call check, consider the move in some detail and make sure your check is really doing something positive. One very useful concept is to prevent the enemy king from running away. Once that is done, any check should have decisive significance. Trapping the opponent's king in your net of doom is known as the mating net. In this video, we'll talk about mating net. Mating net is a preparatory move, many times a quiet one, that is made before striking a checkmate attack. Mating net does not involve checks or captures, contrary to what we used to hear like white to move and mate in 3, or mate in 1, etc. So what is the goal of mating net? Well, the goal is to limit the movement of enemy king, so that the next few moves would lead to checkmate or huge loss of material. Let us consider this position. Take a look at this position. Many inexperienced players would probably be tempted to play rook to f7 check here. Now, make no mistake, it's fun to keep on checking the opponent's king, right? You seems to be having the full control. But rook f7 here helps the opponent's king to escape, because after king to g5, checkmate is nowhere to be found. After knight to f3 check, black can only sacrifice the exchange with rook takes f3, g takes f3. Now, white still has the edge, but win still needs to be crawled down to materialize. So the best move here is to really cover this g5 square here, and that is to be a mating net with h4. After this move, checkmate is inevitable. There is nothing black can do. Now, there are two ways to win. First, if ever black would play something else, how does he prevent that move? h5, for example. Rook f7 covers this escaping square or escape square and checkmate. And the other one is if h5 is not played, perhaps some other move like this one, knight g4 would checkmate black here. Here is a fun endgame mating net position. Notice black seems to be having the advantage due to the fact that he's got passed pawns here running so fast to promote, right? And also his king is close to this side of the board wherein he can just face those white's own pass pawns to promote. It seems that he is there to defend that one very effectively, right? Now, that makes sense because if we are to check this out and see the positions in the first glance, it's going to be a huge advantage for black. But white can build a mating net even if his pass pawns are seen to be slower. Now, after d7 check, king d8, now king d6, making the enemy king stuck. After f3, c5, f2, c6. Now, black got his first queen here, f1 queen, but that queen will be useless because c7 is checkmate. So the idea is to trap the opponent's king so it cannot freely move, then find some mating threats to capitalize on that. In this position, black is down an exchange for white's damaged kingside pawns. The obvious queen to g6 here does not lead to huge advantage, and the game is still far from over for white. Because after queen g6 check, white will just find an umbrella here, king h1, and there's no clear direction after that. For example, rook takes d1, queen takes, or rook takes d1, queen takes d1, e1 rather, and after that, bishop h3, then there's queen g1, and of course, it's going to be still far from over. If bishop c6, white can just capture this d4 pawn, and this f3 pawn is covered. So, how would black capitalize on white's broken kingside? The answer lies with the mating idea of bishop h3. The idea is pretty straightforward. White king must not escape to f1. Is f1 square because if the rooks are exchanged in this file, in this e file, this f1 square is a path for white's king to come into this center part of the board, or center part of nearest comrades there, to hide in the center due to his broken king side. And also so that after queen g6, king finds his escaping path. Now, unlike this bishop to h3 move, there is only now one square for the king to step into, and that is going to be h1 square, right? So after queen g6, there's checkmate after that, and king is helpless, right? Now, king moves to h1, and that is one move there to really prevent checkmate. And white thought that is going to be okay for him. But black will throw in rook takes d1 first, and white resigns. Because if he recaptures this rook with his queen, this will leave this f3 pawn undefended. So taking the rook would be checkmate, otherwise he loses queen. The next position is common to many puzzles. Again, it's tempting to just play queen to h5 here for this checkmate threat, right? But after h6, there's no clear path to proceed. Now, the best move here, white plays bishop to b3. The idea is to further limit the black king at the edge by way of this very strong diagonal control. This mating net, so to speak, also provokes black to harass it with a4. And black did. After a4, which is by the way a trap for black, only then queen to h5 comes into the picture effectively. Black plays h6, weakening this g6 square, so queen g6 is played, threatening a checkmate on queen h7 or h7. Now, h takes g5 is forced. Then, queen to h5 checkmate for black. Now, take note that black cannot step into the g8 square anymore because we have set a mating net in there in the form of bishop b3 in the first place. Here, white played knight to e5, threatening knight takes f7. The best move here for black is actually to play queen to d5. Of course, exchange for both queens and also a threat or counter threat on checkmate here in g2, right? Now, but black blunders with f6. Now, the obvious knight f7 here is actually not a bad move. And black will just sacrifice an exchange there with rook takes knight and queen takes rook, and it's still a long game to play. Of course, not sacrificing an exchange would lead to a smoother mate there, because after king g8, knight g6, check, king h8, queen to g8 check, rook takes queen and knight f7, that is going to be a smoothed checkmate there. Okay, so black has to sacrifice an exchange. Now, but there is a more aggressive move here, especially if your opponent is well aware of the smoothed mate and knows certainly about exchange sacrifice. And that is the move, knight to g6. A sacrifice leading into a mating net. After h takes g6, white will have an in-between move, queen to h3 check. Now, take note that white will not capture right away with f takes g6 because there is a move here for black, a defending move f5, so that after queen h3 check, he can prevent checkmate by moving his bishop to h4. Okay, so we have to have a in-between move here, or a Zug, which is queen h3 check, king g8, f takes g6, and black cannot escape checkmate. Now, take note that rook f7 here or rook e8 will not work due to queen h7 and h8 checkmate here for black. Now let us see if you can manage to, execute a mating net strategy. In this position, white sacrifice a piece in exchange for black's vulnerable king. Black has bishop pair and looks to defend well. Can you continue for white here? Now you can pause the video and analyze. Alright, this position actually shows a typical mating attack. Again, though white can always check black's king on h7, a very tempting possibility. A much better idea is to play first rook to f1, taking control of the f file here, and that is to limit the king's potential escape squares, right? Now, after rook f1, the mating net is complete and black cannot avoid mate or decisive material losses, because after bishop takes f1, there's queen h7 check, king f8, and queen f7 leads to checkmate. While bishop f6, if played by black here, is still a loss because, this pawn is undefended now. Queen will just take it. Queen takes g6, king f8, rook takes f6, and leads to a mass destruction for black. Black's best reply here after rook f1, queen f6, still would not leave white's eventual victory in doubt. So, still a loss for black. So if you're in a situation where obvious mate is nowhere to be found, try to improvise some mating nets by limiting the movement or cutting off some potential escape squares of the enemy king. Doing so not only will put pressure to your opponent and force him to make mistakes, it may also lead to some tactical blow that will seal your win.
Hey, check this video out to make sure that you get more important information to bring your chess to the next level.